Hello everyone. So welcome to your subject, which is strategic management in tourism and hospitality. So we will be talking about case study. So case study is like uh, when we talk about case study, it's more of an analysis. So case study analysis invariably forms a part of most courses in strategic management and originally developed as a teaching tool in major American business schools, particularly Harvard. So, case studies are now widely used by most universities when studying business related courses. So, case study are used so as to enable students to understand the complex nature of strategic decision making and the interrelated nature of such decisions. So, for example, a decision taken in one part of a business will have a knock on effect upon other parts of the business. So, the case study approach enables academic points to be illustrated in context rather than in an abstract way, enabling learning to be more relevant, interesting, and easier to understand. So it has been argued um, throughout this uh, throughout this course that managers in tourism and hospitality have to be aware of the distinctive characteristics of this sector and the managerial implications of these characteristics. So, cases that cover various facets of tourism, hospitality, and events provide an illustration of the specific strategic management challenges that managers face. So, in these industries. So, we are now going to talk about the case studies are a valuable tool in several ways. So, first, case studies actually provide experience of organizational problems and issues that it might not be possible or feasible to encounter directly. So, what does case study provide? Experience of organizational problems and issues. So, when you study some case studies, no, the problems and issues that was faced by other industries will be uh, what do you call this? Will be you'll be familiar with it, because you'll be able to study it through those case studies because you might not encounter them directly, but through those case studies you will be familiar. So another one, we have case studies serve to illustrate, illustrate the theory and concepts of strategic management applied to relevant examples from tourism and hospitality. So when you study case studies, it serves to illustrate the theory and concepts. Okay, these are important. Okay, the theory and concepts of strategic management that was actually applied to those industries that experience that kind of problems and issues. So the theories and concept that they use, it will case studies will illustrate them for you. Okay, another one is case studies allow active participation in strategic analysis, choice, and implementation, and of presenting results persuasively. So, with you learning those case studies, it will allow you an active participation on the strategic analysis, the choice, and the implementation, and of presenting results persuasively. Okay, so another one, case studies illustrate the linkages inherent in strategic management, in that internal decisions have impacts on other parts of the organization and on external stakeholders. So, in learning those case studies, you will be able to know the impacts of those decisions that was made to the other parts of the organizations and of course to those external stakeholders. Okay, so another one, case studies illustrate the holistic nature Okay, holistic nature of strategic management, and that decisions often require knowledge of other subject fields such as marketing, finance, and human resource management. So, in studying those case studies, you will be able to uh, uh, know some of your other fields, no, just like the marketing, finance, and human resource management. So although there is perhaps no substitute for management experience in the real world, so case studies represent the next best thing. So now we move on to what do case studies cover. So the case studies you are asked to analyze, okay, guys, indicate the broad range of strategic decisions managers need to take in real world of tourism and hospitality organizations. So these cases, okay, or the cases may vary in a number of ways, which may affect the type of analysis that is carried out and the way in which the results of the analysis are presented. Okay. So again, guys, the case studies you are asked to analyze will indicate, okay, the broad range of strategic decisions. So each and every case studies that was distributed to you have a broad strategic uh, management and decisions that were made by managers in the real world. So those cases were actually happened, okay? So, but the cases, remember, may be vary in number of ways, which may affect the type of analysis that is carried out, okay? So, uh, there are cases from our industry, but they are different in a way that it was carried out, okay, or how they were able to apply it in their own organization, okay. So next, cases are actually diverse and may relate to organizations, first, that are large or small scale, that are complex in their structure and management, or which are relatively simple to understand with exposure to particular type of risk. Another one with exposure to particular types of risk and that are successful or that are in difficulties, that are known to you or where their true circumstances are changed in order to illustrate particular points. Another one we have that are totally fictitious and created just for illustrative purposes, or in which the company name, the names of the managers, are so on are altered so as to disguise the real company being considered. So another cases in the present day or at a date in the past, and where they are working collectively or on their own. Okay, so those are what do we mean when we say cases are diverse and may relate to organizations. Okay, now in all cases considered, however, it is important to realize that you are normally being asked to do is to place yourself in the position of a manager of an organization or within an industry sector to a particular moment in time. So that is actually one of the reasons why there are case studies and you are actually studying it to actually feel, no, or place yourself, put yourself in the shoes of those managers of an organization. So in that particular moment that they are able to, or they are actually experiencing the problems and issues. So what will you do, or what strategies are you going to plan or to do in that kind of situation? So the important point, it's not what actually happened to the company um, in reality, but given the available information, Okay, how would you have made sense of the information available to you at the time, and what actions would you have recommended in the circumstances? Okay, so now we move on to the reading and studying the case. So in considering cases, you are expected to go beyond merely describing the circumstances of the case. The case method requires you to analyze the cases in detail and develop sound, resound judgments that will lead to recommendations being made. So now, what are you going to do with your cases? You are going, okay, to not just read them, not just present them, but merely, okay, describing the circumstances of the case. So you need to, what do you call this? You need to say, or you need to describe and enumerate all the circumstances of the case that they were able to encounter. Okay, so the case method requires you to analyze the cases in, okay, remember, detail and develop sound reasoned judgment that will lead to recommendations being made. So if you were able to enumerate the circumstances, the problems, the issues they encounter, you're going to do some recommendations. Or if there is a recommendation already in that cases, you can actually cite more recommendations, more solutions, no, that they can apply or could apply also during those scenarios. So many cases contain red herrings, which are designed to actually mislead and confuse. So in this way, the real world is replicated because in real situations, information comes from several directions, reaches managers by different means, and is often confusing or incomplete. So a manager has to make sense of the information and discern the important of urgent from the less important or less urgent. So in analyzing a case, it is important to ask what are the central issues. Okay, so you should make sure that you are actually pointing out with your case study the central issues. So there will be instances when you feel that you do not have all the information you need to make the best decision. The information presented in the case, however, is often incomplete by design and again reflects the situation pertaining in the real world. So managers often have to make decisions based on the information available to them at the time. So although they might wish they had further information, it is either unavailable or available within the necessary time scale with the resource available. So thus you are required to make the best possible use of the information that you actually have at your disposal. Okay, so you are also asked to make your analysis at the time of the case. So managers do not have the benefit of hindsight when managing their companies. They have to manage with the information available. With the information available to them at the time, and so it is with the case studies. So for example, a case considering a tour operator set in 2000 would not have known, for instance, of the terrorist attack on America in September 2001 and its subsequent effects upon international travel and the companies involved. So one of the difficulties in analyzing cases is the lack of right answer. Okay. So it will be very hard to analyze cases without the right answer. So there may be some answers that are clearly wrong. It is less easy to prove that an answer is right. So another example is if you propose that a small event management company operating in its local market that has demonstrated growth of 10% per annum over the last 5 years should grow to become the largest event management company in the world over the next 3 years, it will almost certainly be unrealistic and therefore wrong. Okay, so however, there be several strategic options available, and the strength of the answer depends upon the strength of the arguments presented, which is in turn depend upon the analysis carried out. So the analysis of case should be based upon the facts, okay, the facts of the case, sound and logical reasoning, and importantly, the application of the strategic principles, theories, and concepts from the academic literature. So these are the things that should be presented with your cases, okay? So we move on to doing the analysis. So these are the analysis aspects and then the tips. So reading the case. Read the case twice initially. Read the case quickly as if you were reading the newspaper, getting a feel for the structure and layout of the case. So on the second reading of the case, make notes, underline important passages, mark sections for later analysis, and identify the central issues, okay? Identify in this while you were reading the cases, make sure that you understand, okay? Make sure that you understand. And then while reading, you must identify the issues, okay? What do you mean? We should identify identify, okay? Identify the central issue, okay? The central issue, okay? So once you have an adequate grasp of the case and the issues presented, you can begin an in-depth analysis. Next you need to do is organize the case facts. Organize them. Organize the case facts. What are you going to do? The facts of a case may be presented in a bewildering or misleading way. So make sure that you are organizing your case. It may be necessary for you to reorganize the information or label the data so that it makes more sense. Okay, when you are doing your presentation and you are consolidating all the facts, make sure that you are not misleading us, okay, by what? Organizing the case facts. So for example, sometimes it might be necessary to reorder the material chronologically or to separate the organization into its constituent parts. Okay. Next, avoid vacuous terms. Terms which are hollow and lacking in content make the analysis unsound. For example, good, bad, many, few are vacuous without precise meaning, as each individual will interpret them in a different manner. Okay, next is do not contact the company. Okay, please do not contact the company. The case provides the information you need to analyze, and the information may have been changed for teaching purposes. The case is designed to put you in the position of a company manager at a particular point in time. Okay, so with the presentation of those case studies, you are actually being managers, not at the time of the issues or the cases being studied, so that you will put your shoes on the shoes of those managers during that time or in that case. Okay, so next, appeals to authority, use of references, application of concepts, and empirical evidences to support your case are valid ways of justifying your arguments. Okay, however, so care must be taken. Just because an expert supports a view does not necessarily make it correct, and different experts can present different views. Okay, next we have, if you use a concept to organize the information or to support your views, make sure that it is applied appropriately. Okay, for example, Porter's 5 force model may be an appropriate way of analyzing the competitive environment, but make sure that it is applied to the facts of the case and not merely presented in its abstract form. Okay. And a common mistake is to use every conceivable strategic concept or framework available. Okay, be selective. Usually, some concepts are more appropriate in the circumstances than others. So the concepts are only useful in that they aid understanding. So which concepts are appropriate will depend upon the fact of the case and the material presented to you. Okay, so next is case linkages. Okay, the case may be presented in a confusing manner, but look for opportunities to make links between different parts of the case and thereby demonstrate that you have understood the case and its complexities. So, for example, the case may state within the text that a new sales and marketing director was appointed. So, in another part of the case, a table may indicate a falling of failing sales trend, and the financial statements may indicate a vastly increased advertising budget. So by bringing together the three disparate pieces of information, appropriate conclusions might be drawn. So similarly, bringing together information from differing parts of the case and presenting it in a different form may be useful to aid understanding. So putting the figures into a graph or table might be useful, for example. So with presenting the case studies, you might or you want to use some of those figures and graphs tables, no, for the listeners to be more attentive and be uh, organized, no, their thoughts might organize through your presentation. So another is adding value to the information. Look for opportunities when analyzing a case to add value through your analysis. In other words, it is far more valuable to interpret the information rather than merely to repeat the information contained in the case in your answer. Okay, so for example, a case on an airline, okay, might state that the aircraft fleet contains 10 Boeing 737-800 and 6 Boeing 787 aircraft purchased at various stated dates between 2000 and 2014. So rather than repeat this information in your answer, it is much more useful to calculate the average age of the fleet. So if the fleet relatively young or relatively old, similarly, a hotel operator may present sales figures for the last 10 years. So that's another example. Okay, a calculation showing the percentage growth or decline of sales from year to year would add value. So such a calculation would clearly show whether the rate of growth has risen or declined. So another one is we have your case study summary. Okay, case study summary. We have 7 cases. So we'll be going through those cases one by one. So when we talk about the strategic alliance in the airline industry, history and development. So what is the strategy focus? The history and development of international airlines, alliance as a strategic method for growth, international regulations of airlines, and external analysis. This is global, okay? This is an international airline. So your focus is more on the global, okay? Next, we have the Tourism Queensland strategic positioning and promotion. So what is the focus of this case? The strategy for developing Queensland as an international tourism and events destination, sustainability, product and markets, public-private partnership. So that is the strategy focus. And when we talk about the geographic focus, it's more of the Asia and the Pacific. And the sector that we're going to focus is the tourist destinations and events. Okay. Now we move on to the Ranier evolution of competitive strategy. So cost leadership, you'll be focusing on the cost leadership competitive strategy, approach to customer care, leadership styles, and change. So your geographic focus in UK and Europe. And sector, you are focusing on the international air and airlines. Okay. Next is the Hyatt Hotels. A family firm goes for growth. So in your strategy, focus is international growth strategies in the hotel industry. methods of growth, example, franchising and management contracts, and market segmentation and brand development, corporate governance. So the geographic focus is US and global, and sector focus, of course, hotels. Next is the days in franchising hospitality assets in China. So your strategy focus, analyzing the competitive environment, segmenting, targeting, and positioning hotels, hotel penetration in the Asian market, and characteristics of the tourism, hospitality, and events products. So geographical focus, US and China. And you have the sector, which is the hotels. So, and the last one is the Thomas Cook. Oh no, second to the last, which is turnaround for an historic travel brand. So historic tourism development will be your strategic focus, competitive strategy and strategic direction, products and markets, financial analysis and performance, change and leadership, turnaround strategy. And you have your geographic focus, which is the Europe and global. And of course, your sector will be tour operators and tourism. And last, the read exhibition strategic issues for a leading events management company, where your strategy focus is planning events, understanding strategic risk, product and market strategy, production innovation, competitive strategy and strategic methods, internationalization, and your focus is global. And of course, your sector is events. Okay. So this is the case study summary. So just remember, okay, guys, that the case study recipe is that you need to identify the problems, every problems, the issues that is presented in that case. You will be presenting it to the class, to the listeners, or to the learners, or to those who are going to listen, or to your case study. And then after that, you are going to enumerate the possible solutions. Okay, the possible solutions that is applicable to the problem, and cite those solutions that you are going to you're going to do, or you're going to choose for that kind of issues, for that kind of problems in your cases. Okay, so if those solutions are the best that they or if that is the solution that is best for their cases, um, try to cite the rationale on the solutions that you are going to choose, or to what do you call this, implement, no, in the solving of your problem. And of course, do not forget, no, the results. So identify the possible results, all the result itself during and after implementing the solutions that you choose to make and do with that situation, with that problem. Okay, so I think that's all for the case study, and I hope you were able to understand all the things that you need to do in your presentation. All I need to see, and all I need to want to know in every cases, is the problem, the solution, and the results. Okay, so if you have more questions, you can actually message me on FB, and I am going to answer your questions, your queries in the best of my ability. And I think that's all for now. See you again next time. Bye.